and inspiring leader, Professor Mahesh Panchagnola. I invite Professor Mahesh to please occupy a chair on the dais. I invite Professor Ashwin to please join him on the dais. Today, we gather to celebrate and honor the remarkable contributions of Professor Mahesh to the Office of Alumni and Corporate Relations. His dedication, vision, and leadership have left a lasting legacy that will be remembered for years to come. Without further ado, let's begin this memorable event. To set the tone for this occasion, I would now like to invite Professor Ashwin Mahalingam to please deliver the welcome address.
Thank you. I think we're going to have a lot of people speaking. I'm not sure if that music is going to come on for everybody. So, anyway, good afternoon, everyone. So, some time ago, when we were talking about this, I just made a small note in my calendar saying farewell for Professor Mahesh. But I just want to sort of reiterate that this is not a farewell. As Mahesh has said time and time again, he's going to be here for another 13 years. So we're going to see a lot of him. And this is really more of a thank you for what Mahesh has done for both the office as well as for the institute over primarily the last 6 years, but he's also been involved with the institute and with alumni and corporate relations for much longer. I'm not going to take too much time because we want to have enough time for people to come and talk about sort of their experiences and views. But just a couple of things. I think we all agree that what Mahesh has helped achieve in his 6-year tenure is nothing short of absolutely amazing. If I recall my numbers correctly, I think around the time Mahesh took over as Dean from Professor Nagarajan 6 years ago, the office was raising something of the order of about maybe 60, 70 crores a year. And, for very relevant causes for the institute. And this last year, as we all know, we touched a little bit upwards of 500 crores, right? So that is, of course, I think Mahesh will be the first to also say that, it's not just him. The entire office has done a fantastic job. And not just the office, our well-wishers, the trust, the Alumni Association, everyone has sort of played a part. But it's essentially been a 7x growth, or maybe even a little bit more than a 7x growth in 5 years. And I think if you take most corporate CEOs and benchmark them against the growth of their organization, I find it challenging to find too many people who've been at the helm of a 7x growth over 5 years. So that's something that's absolutely remarkable that he's sort of been at the helm of. But beyond that, it's not just those 5 years. What has happened is over the last few years, we've set up a system that will actually go on for several years. I mean, institutionalized mechanisms are there. It's almost been dean-proofed in some sense. So whoever is sort of notionally the dean, we have a machinery now. And that's something that I think Mahesh has taken a lot of care to set up. And I think that's very important because these kinds of things sometimes tend to rise up and down based on the individual. But it's very, very difficult to institutionalize this, which is what he has done. So those, I think, are some fantastic sort of achievements that we can all quantify. But over and beyond that, I think there are a couple of things. One is, of course, he's brought a lot of energy and intensity to the role. I think we all know how sort of long and hard he's worked. But also, I feel, and I've been involved with alumni and corporate relations in some way over several years, but a little bit more strongly over the last year, is that he's also brought a lot of imagination to this office. So you could, I think, just sort of keep the wheels turning. There'll be some scholarships that will keep coming. There'll be a few things that will happen. But he's constantly been thinking of where should the institute be? What's the next big thing for the institute? And what can we as an office do to fundraise? So in some sense, we are not just looking at, please give us requirements, from academic courses, planning, etc., and we'll try to raise funds. This office has actually been thinking ahead, saying this is what you guys should be asking for and trying to go ahead and do this. So I think that imagination is something that's extremely important. And I think that's something that, in my mind at least, distinguishes Mahesh from a lot of others who've held similar functions. So it's been a great ride. I think it's time to celebrate the last 6 years. and of course wish him well for the next 13. But I'd also like to say that, we're fortunate to have Mahesh's family here as well. They've probably borne a lot of the brunt of the last 6 years with, Mahesh on calls and traveling and so on. So it's not just a thank you for Mahesh, but also a thank you to, his entire family. Also, his daughter's not here. She was not able to bunk classes in IIT Trichy today. But thank you all for helping the institute get to where it is. So thank you very much. And congratulations again, Mahesh. All the best for the next innings. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Moving forward, I now invite a few members to please share their encomia, words of praise and reflections on Professor Mahesh's contributions and personal impact.
Anyone can come and you can speak in any language. Tamil is fine, Telugu is fine, English is fine.
Good afternoon, Professor Mahesh and Ashwin and my friends. I belong to the 1970 batch and I'm possibly the oldest in this audience here today. My mind goes back to the time we started the Alumni Trust. That was during the time when Professor Parameswaran was the president of the IIT Madras Alumni Association. There was no provision to receive money at IIT. That was the condition those days of fundraising. So we started a trust so that the trust can raise the money and then pass it on to IIT. That was in 91. Then over a period we have worked, then the office of alumni relations got set up. It first started with Varadarajan, an alumnus. Later on, Professor Satya took over. So from that period, we have been making attempts to bring some kind of a fundraising arrangement. But finally, it worked only in 2015 under Nagarajan that we could set up what we called then as Development Office and now as Office of Institutional Advancement. So from there to here, Mahesh has done a magnificent job. When he initially took over and I was dealing with him, I realized that he was just as old as my son. I was wondering how I was going to handle. But then it worked out very well. So we had a good relationship. And later on, of course, Alamelu took over from me and then continued it. He is very focused. And I do hope Ashwin continues the same focus and takes us to greater heights. Thank you very much.
Friends, I am K.K. Raman, 1972 batch, second oldest person in this audience after DC. And in 1991, D. Chandrasekhar and I are the co-founders of the trust when we formed the trust. And I remember when we approached the alumni for fundraising, they were saying, IIT is a government institution. I am paying my income taxes. It is the job of the government to spend the money on education. Why are you asking for money in the side? So this was the question. And we realized that everywhere we stumbled upon this problem. Then one day we had a discussion with M.A. Parameswaran, one of our other alumni, who is an expert in advertising and communication. So he said, it's a fact that government is funding IIT Madras. So you cannot deny it. Everybody knows. So better to admit it and move forward. So then we had a discussion. Then we coined the slogan, government meets needs, alumni meet aspirations. So this founded a good tagline. Then we sat with the institute, and he said, now you must make a list of, aspirations that we could project. So we said we will not go to the alumni for donations for any routine expenditure of the institute, but things that the institute wants to do in the future. So we made one aspiration list and went forward. And we started in 1992. In 1997, for the first time, we hit 1 lakh in an entire year. The whole year collection was 1 lakh in 1997. So from there, we have come a long way. During the last 6 years of Mahesh's regime, you see, in Sanskrit, Mahesh means strong leader in Sanskrit, which I think he is. Then I tried to figure out what this Panchagnula is. So my own explanation of Panchagnula is Pancha is 5, Angulam is fingers. So 5 fingers operated in his fist. So strong leader, fistful of dollars. So that's what he represents. And he had the full operation under his control, inside his fist. He combined that with tremendous passion for the institute and his role. So I think it is, this kind of 7x results which which Ashwin mentioned is not possible only with talent in the leader. That leader has to be strong, and if he is not passionate about the role, this will never happen. So he has combined these two virtues, and I think he deserves a big applause for this. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nishani and I head operations at the Alumni Association. Professor Mahesh was very kind and very supportive of the Alumni Association's missions, goals, and especially as a mentor to me personally, I feel. His support and having an always open conversation helped me grow, helped the Alumni Association grow manifold over the last 3 years. I think his slightly pushy nature and his passion for the alumni community to grow together, to grow for the institute, to foster meaningful connections with each other is amazing. And we have tried to live up to his expectations and his goals that he set. We tried our best, but we still strive. And your ideas, your comments, your inputs, thank you so much for your timely help always. And every time I would ask him for a meeting, he always agreed. So that's one of the greatest gifts for me, especially. Whenever I would come to any sort of confusion or anything that had to be discussed urgently, he was always there. And so I think I want to take this opportunity for thanking you, and especially for a newcomer like me into the ecosystem. I felt very comfortable with, of course, the IIT EC and also the support from Professor Mahesh's whole office. So thank you so much, and I hope we can continue this relationship as a mentor-mentee for a long time to go. Thank you.
So after DC said he's the oldest and KK said he's the second oldest, let me say I'm the second youngest. I can't say I'm the youngest here so easily, so let me say second youngest. And the reason behind why I'm second youngest is Mahesh. I joined in 79, I'm yet to graduate. He, what's the secret here? He pushed me into and persuaded me and motivated me to do a PhD. And so hopefully, somewhere soon, I will cease being a student here. So that's the point I'm making is I've seen Mahesh at, we were in the same building, ICSR building when GDC started. And I've seen him in in many conversations, and he's very motivational. And I'll give you two instances where I think the point that K.K. Raman said, it's not just strong, or DC said, it's about passion, it's also about vision. See, we did a program at GDC about 6 months back. Mahesh, I don't know if you remember, this was the Madan Mohan Malviya program, which is the Ministry of Education has started for creating leaders or stewards for better stewardship in academic institutions in India. So, for some reason, they chose IIT Madras to do one, and we had about 30 odd people, mid to senior level academicians. So, Mahesh gave a talk. I don't think we gave you a topic. I don't remember if he did. He made 2 points, and I remember them because the participants have come back to me even now, and they're continuing to ask me that point. And let me jog your memory, Mahesh. He said when IIT Madras was started in 59, 50, and maybe a bunch of IITs around that time, the annual outlay for these institutions as a percentage of the national budget was not insignificant. So which means that, how much was it? 2%? So it was noticeable. It was not a decimal correction. So that was the emphasis that the government placed on this, and therefore there is an onus on people who shoulder this as leaders to take it forward. He made it in the passing. It seems to have had a huge impact on people. The second thing he said is, you should be able to tell a story. The story that people are telling about Mahesh is basically, he says, people carry stories, not facts, data. He gave the instance of Technion in Israel, which when you go into Technion University, you have the photo who made the encryption algorithm. This was invented here, and that speaks volumes for Technion. So he says IIT Madras and your institutions need to have the stories. Again, those people, most people in that program remember that point that Mahesh made. It's not just about leaders and policies and programs and schemes and whatever else, or manuals that you write. It's the stories that your institute can tell. And I think these kind of visionary inputs that they gave, that Mahesh actually gave, many people actually come back and ask, look, I think we're not getting there yet. We're not finding a story. But it tells me the kind of impact that Mahesh made. Clearly, you can see that in the 6 or 7 years that he has spent as dean here, and many stories for IIT Madras to sell. So thank you, Mahesh, for being a personal inspiration as well as for inspiring many other people. Great story.
I invite Shankar sir to please say a few words.
I was hoping I was invisible, but obviously I'm not. No, see, it is, anything worth doing is worth doing well. Otherwise, you should not do it all. So when Bhaskar at that time said, why don't you join the trust? I debated for a while whether I had the time and energy to actually do it well, or whether I would just fill a seat, which I clearly do not want to do. And one of the reasons I decided to accept it is Mahesh. You just speak to him for a few minutes, 2 or 3 times, and his passion for IIT comes out in spades. I mean, this sort of passion I have seen in the armed forces, perhaps, where people are absolutely loyal to their regiment and to their structure. That is the sort of passion I have seen in Mahesh for IIT and all that it represents in terms of the vision of IIT, what it can become. And the point on vision that you made is absolutely right. He always thinks of what could be rather than what it is now. No incrementalism here at all. So there are so many inspirational things about Mahesh, and it has been a learning process for me to have interacted with him for these last few years. Very big shoes he has left for Ashwin to fill. It is going to be a challenge, but we are there. The shoe size will expand as you fit into it. I'm sure about it. Yeah, so, no, IIT is very fortunate in that the people who fill this role have all been, starting from Satya, have all been uniformly sort of a good fit for the role from a passion, from a competence perspective. So, so hopefully great things from Ashwin going ahead. And thank you, Mahesh. I think you elevated this function from what it was. It is an exemplar. I think if you just say the word IITM to any other educational institution, they will sort of stand up and salute for the accomplishments in terms of fundraising that we have achieved. So thank you, Mahesh, for that.
Oh, so we had several alumni talk about Mahesh, and I'm going to be talking about him from a slightly different hat. But first thing to mention is the common thread of tennis that runs between Mahesh, Ashwin, and I. So I feel like we have not really changed the dean in at least one sense. So we have a tennis faculty team member still occupying this spot. So that's great. So of course, Mahesh and I have had interactions in research for many years now. So I know what he brings in terms of the passion everybody talked about for many years. But so even when he was the dean, we used to have chats about different things, and I really used to enjoy the new perspective that he brought to everything. So as faculty, since I'm bringing the first faculty perspective here, we tend to be a little bit more details oriented, and we try to see what we can accomplish from where we are at right now. It's really hard for us to really look at what's going to happen 10-15 years. And so in that sense, when I was talking to Mahesh in various facets, just looking at how he was able to envisage what's going to happen, and how we should direct it several years from now, was an eye-opening aspect of the interactions that I had. But and this part, I think several of the previous speakers already made, so I'm reiterating that right now. But the point that I wanted to make, and I think that I found really fascinating, was I have worked with Mahesh in this in this particular role in a particular magazine called IIT Madras Shastra that we had Mahesh envisaged and started out, right? So getting the idea for the magazine, which I remember one of the first meetings that maybe when Ashwin was there, we were all sitting around, and he presented that this is IIT should own a platform by which we talk about science, technology, and innovation around the country. That idea was good. Excellent. It really said, okay, this is something we need to do. But that part is not the part which fascinated me. It's like setting the things into motion, setting the idea in motion. That's where lots of times there's a slip twixt the cup and the lip, right? You can always envisage great ideas, but setting them up is, I think, at least orders of magnitude more difficult. And I was present at every stage of the game when he was upping the ante and making sure that the next step was in place. And that, for me, was really the major learning of how Mahesh operates. So making sure you find. So trying to make cross connections between. This is the strength of this group, this is the strength of the group. Let's try to work together to make sure we can get more than the sum of those two parts. Then trying to constantly keep a process going on in the back of the mind to see who will fit well in which role. So all these actual implementation, and from there we have come to a really significant stage of the magazine. I was present with Mahesh every step of the way, and I was watching him do that. And that, to me, was really the most exciting part of the journey. So congratulations about that, Mahesh, particularly about that, because that's one thing I was really involved with. And welcome, Ashwin. So hopefully we'll see you in the tennis court a little bit more now that you're part of the Dean ACI team. Okay, sure. That has to be usually we tennis people are very parochial. We have to mention tennis during any speech, so I had to mention it a couple of times. So thank you very much, Mahesh, and thank you all for listening to me. Look at that.
So good afternoon to all. So I am Satya from Biotech Department and also Dean students. First, let me congratulate Professor Mahesh for his fabulous work, which made institute, which brought institute to a different level now. And so basically, I'm a chemical engineer. So in our field, we have something called proof of concept and lab scale process, and then industrial scale process. I think in 1991, our seniors have made it a proof of concept to become alumni corporate relationships. And during Nagaraj regime, it's become a lab level kind of process. I think Mahesh brought it to industrial scale of process to this level. It's amazing. I think now it's a very tough job for Ashwin. Okay. So it's like 400 runs in a T20, he has to score that, correct? So strike rate is too much. Huh? Yeah, unicorns. So now you have to bring a lot of unicorns. And I also tell that say, among all deans, this Dean Alumni Corporation Relations is not an easy job, right? Even now, I cannot convince my parents to get 1 lakh rupee, correct? Can you try? Or can you give it to your kids? It's very difficult, correct? So convincing someone, not even parent, not relative, from industry, from corporate people, alumnus, convince them and getting money so much is really a very tough job. And you need a lot of planning, patience, and ability to convince them is a very, very appreciable thing. And without that, I think IIT also would have not become such a #1 institute now. And another thing from students' point of view, so we are very thankful to Alumni Office for raising a lot of funds for wellness thing. So recently we got a lot of funds for a student wellness team. And also, whenever I ask them for funding for students, people who have less than 50K annual income, so for them we are trying to help them in giving a food. So Alumni Office always helps us to raise funds and do this. I think we also give a lot of requests for them to raise funds. I think they'll continuously support us. So I wish you all good luck for Mahesh, all your future assignments. And also welcome Ashwin for the Dean's Committee. You'll have a lot of fun. So with this, thank you and good luck to all.
I invite Anumilu ma'am to say a few words, please.
See, when I took over as a secretary, that was when I had to interact with Mahesh more frequently. A lot of compliances issues, and here I have an extremely aggressive go-getter, and every time I enter the office or there is a phone call, what is the new demand from him? How am I going to get it done? So, and then came the FCRA. I had the money, but I couldn't spend. The entire institute was very unhappy because the money is there, but I can't pay. Otherwise, I must get the bills and all. And it was very tough couple of years. While he is aggressive, I am slightly, I am not a doctor. Nobody is going to die because of a one-day delay. So that will be my attitude. Let me see whether all compliances are in its place before I sign the check and get it for his signature. And I have heard him tell twice, Alamelu, why are you a status quoist? If you are very slow, we will all be running very fast, you will be lagging behind. But I must thank him for tolerating me for all these years. And probably he might have found some point or some benefit of having somebody who is slightly slow in their reaction, which may bring some value to the structure in its own way. So it was a very interesting lot of episodes, lot of talks, lot of fights, but eventually ending up with a lot of respect for this young, aggressive, focused, dedicated man called Mahesh. Thank you, Mahesh.
I request Mr. Nikhil Tambe to please say a few words.
Hello everyone, this is Nikhil Tambe. And I think the perspective that I can add is, I know Mahesh from before the time I was at IIT Madras. So I know Mahesh for maybe 13 years now, thanks to Sudhakar Potukuchi, who was my boss and an alumnus of IIT Madras. And I think I start with something. So once Sudhakar introduced me to Mahesh, after a few meetings that we had, Mahesh told me some interesting things because Sudhakar was his batchmate. And I went and told Sudhakar, Mahesh is telling me this about you. And Sudhakar got very nervous that now what all Mahesh is going to tell Nikhil. So what Mahesh doesn't know is Sudhakar also told me some stories about Mahesh from those days. But I'm not going to give any of you any pleasure from those right now. So, I mean, it's been great to know Mahesh. I know him when he came to IIT Madras in the first or second year after coming to IIT Madras. And I was in Eton and we had funded some projects and I was made responsible from Eton side for IIT Madras related work. And that's how we got started. And it did not stop with the project which I did with Mahesh. So Mahesh introduced us to a lot of faculty members on campus. So you made sure that, it was not just something, and that was admirable because you were also new at that time in the system. So even at that time, to have the passion, which some of you mentioned for IIT Madras was evident and clear. I think, Mahesh, you have been a person who has invested in people. So while you have been an institution builder, and the metrics are there to talk about, the other thing is, also how you get these numbers. How do you, targets is one thing, but how do you achieve targets is equally important. And that's where, to me, lie a lot of leadership qualities. And that's where you stood out. You invested in a lot of people, I'm sure, during the last 6, but beyond those years also. And he was instrumental in convincing me to come here. Actually, I had called Mahesh saying, hey, there's this job at IIT Bombay. And I mostly work in industry, and can you tell me how IITs work? Should I go there? And he was like, there's one job here as well. Why don't you consider that? And that's how the story started for me here. So I think it's been brilliant 3 years for me at IIT Madras. I mean, I work closely with him now. He's of course on the board as well, but even before that. So I think it's been a pleasure, and the pleasure will continue. Thank you, Mahesh, for all you've done for everyone here, but even for us who have been attracted to IIT Madras just because of you.
I request Professor Satya to please say a few words.
I thought I'm just sneaking in for a few minutes, but nevertheless, like Nikhil, Mahesh has also been instrumental in me coming to IIT. I forever remember that because I think I was with Forbes Marshall setting up the research center for them at Research Park, and by chance I had applied. Mahesh and Raghu, both of them. Raghu's office, I was just telling I would like to come here, and he says, you're already 35, you have one more day to apply. That's how I did. But then once I did my interviews, I didn't really care. And Mahesh called me and said, did you know or did you get the information? I said, what are you talking about? He said, oh, you haven't received yet, you may get it. But come over, let me talk with you and let's figure out which department you will choose. Because I had an offer from both mechanical and applied mechanics. I think he's been one of my, I would say, well-wishers, mentors in this campus. And I keep saying, he tells me far ahead of the time of what I should do. And focusing on energy, I was a guy who has worked in aerosols, and I started putting my legs on both sides. And at some point early on, he said, pick energy. That might help. So that's how I decided, and probably, as you can say, looking back, it's very clear. But at that point, I had, energy is a very broad field. As an academic, it's too wide, and I don't know what to get into, but it's helping me quite a bit. Thank you, Mahesh, for that. And we've had a lot of pleasure in moving very aggressively. Kotak project is one, we both are PIs. It's also a project where it's a leap of faith. When we started, we emptied all our what we call contingency funds. We have some funds and put it all in a project and figured out what might happen. And it turned out to be an excellent CSR project for us. And it's scaling. It's now a pan-India center. Again, I think what I would like to convey is he has this ability to think wider and also probably identify the right people to work on it so that it can be executed. So that, I think, is the culture now at the corporate relations office, where you're really thinking wide and big. And Ashwin, of course, I don't envy you, but we definitely will work with you very, very closely. All the best, Mahesh, and would continue to work with you anyway.
I invite Kaviraj Nair to please say a few words.
Thank you, Jennifer. It is an absolute pleasure and honor to work with Professor Mahesh. It is an absolute pleasure and an honor working with Professor Mahesh for the last 4 years. Under his strong leadership and guidance, the team was able to obviously achieve some remarkable milestones. And so a few things that come to my mind are obviously once you get into a meeting with him, he always challenges the status quo. So he asks the really challenging questions, and you walk into the meeting with a certain set of perspective, and you walk out with a completely different, a more refined, more evolved, and a really enhanced level of understanding of the situation, right? Like, so very clearly he used to push us beyond to achieve things which are really extraordinary that way. Like, so clearly he used to challenge the status quo. Second, I think many people have already mentioned this, the patriotism towards IIT Madras, and he always super sincere about anything related to IIT Madras, and I have met several clients and alumni along with him. He made that connections reignite wherever it was missing, like, right? Clearly put in a lot of effort to make the connections stronger. Put in effort and put in time to make that happen. He would travel and meet with people and all of that, right? And which is one of the key, elements in this, one of the most crucial elements in this role, and he definitely put in a lot of effort to make that happen. So that is another part. And overall, of course, he put in a lot of effort to build all the stakeholders together and nurture that collaboration spirit of collaboration. So there's another, and as somebody else already pointed it out, I think Nikhil mentioned, it's not just about achieving the target, and how you achieve that target is also equally important. And Professor Mahesh obviously gave a lot of importance to that part, which was very evident during our town hall meetings and various other, small group meetings that we did. Thank you, Professor Mahesh, for all the guidance and the leadership that you brought to the team, and we are obviously grateful to you for all your support. And as others already pointed out, now look forward to working with Professor Ashwin. So Professor Mahesh has left a very strong foundation and a legacy for us to build on top of that. Thank you, and here is wishing you the very best. Thank you.
I would now like to call my colleagues from the Office of Alumni and Corporate Relations to please say a few words. I first call upon Pratibha to please say a few words.
Thank you so much for coming. So in my 11 years, the first time I'm attending a dean's retirement. I know. So is it because you are so special, or is it because I don't know, or because I missed all the other ones? Thank you. I consider it my fortune that you are here. All the best. See you. Come. What are we doing? Sitting here. Yes.
We are privileged to have with us Dr. Pavan Goenka, Chairman of the Board of Governors, IIT Madras, with us today. I request Dr. Pavan Goenka to please address the gathering.
Well, I was not prepared to address the gathering. I thought I'll just come here, 2 minutes, shake hands, and go away. And then he has not even fed me lunch yet. So it's 2:45, and so you have to now take care of lunch very quickly. So I want to just say very quickly that in 4 years, 4 years with him? 6 years. 6 years, wow. 6 years, he really has made a very big difference. He is as much of a marketing person as a professor. And there are very few professors. There are very few professors, if I keep mentioning in the Board of Governors meeting also, that there are very few professors who are good in projecting the right things about the institute and so on. And Mahesh has done a wonderful job in that. And coming from industry, where marketing is always at the top of everything else, I really appreciate what you have been able to do and lay a very good foundation for your successor to take forward. Very good foundation, at the same time, very high expectations because of what you have achieved in your tenure. So I'm sure that you will
be given some other assignment, he's not going to let you go and just start teaching and doing research. So what's the next thing that you've planned? Not known yet. Not known yet. Okay. So I'm sure that he'll be doing something beyond his teaching and research. But thank you so much from the Board of Governors viewpoint, because this is something that has been really on top of our mind on how do we engage more internationally and nationally, and how do we get the alumni to come closer to IIT. From the very beginning, I've been talking about that. And today, IIT Madras probably is at the top of all IITs. And that's in large part thanks to the effort put in by Professor Mahesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We also have with us our beloved director, Professor V. Kamakoti, who will now address the gathering.
As Dr. Pawan put it, Mahesh has been a tremendous source of idea, the out-of-the-box thinker in our Dean's Committee. Many things. One of the pinnacle, I must say, is the Shastra magazine, where we are now really competing with the MIT Technical Review, and more importantly, we are seeing that we are better than that MIT Technical Review. And I think that deserves great appreciation, and that is where our perception is going to go. I have no doubt that when we go in for the international ranking, they say that the perception is low. In a few years, I think we will be very high in that perception, and what foundation Mahesh has put, I am very confident that this is going to take us to that height. Then comes our strategic plan made by many of our youngsters, but Mahesh has actually taken it to heart and has been very thoroughly following, and that has essentially at regular intervals given very strong feedback on where we are actually lagging down. And when we started pushing that up, and that is, I consider it is very important for us to maintain this NARF 1. I think the strategic plan has been a very important building block, and Mahesh, very regular analysis and inputs in our Dean's Committee and in the board has played a very important role. So thank you very much, Mahesh. The next one is, of course, our alumni relationship. No one probably in our country have even realized that alumni can do so much. And that we have brought in. It's not just about funding, but it's also about alumni engagement. I think that's the term which Mahesh brought in, wherein we started involving alumnus in mentoring our startup. KKR is here, DC is here, and so many of you. And we also started involving alumni in framing our syllabus. They are now part of our investment committee. And all these interventions actually came after Mahesh has put his very great thoughts here. Thank you, Mahesh. And the next one is our IITM Global Research Foundation. So it's coming up as a Section 8 company. We just had the approval of the board. I think that is going to be a different outfit which no other IIT has seen, like our IIT Madras Research Park. We'll be starting in Far East, Abu Dhabi or Dubai, Tanzania, US, California, and many places. And already we have requests for many countries to come this. I think that is going to be a major turning point for IIT, specifically in marketing our technologies. Again, thank you, Mahesh, for this. And this term, IITM for all, though many times they say that it has come from director, I must acknowledge this IITM for all, Anaivarukkum IITM, was actually framed by Mahesh, and that has created clearly it has given a different perception about IIT Madras, that we are very inclusive, we are not elitist, we are open to all, and that particular motto that we are now projecting is aligning very well with our BS Data Science and all other CSR initiatives. And that has also attracted many CSR people, that particular coining word. I think I owe it to you, Mahesh, and thank you very much for that. So, Mahesh, it's not that we are going to miss you. Of course, you will have more engagements. No dean can escape, and no performing dean can never escape. Okay. So, we will have larger roles to play, not just for building IITM. What is very inspiring, the last one, I'm sure all of us are hungry, but there's lot I could talk about Mahesh. That Mahesh started thinking at one point of time, and he repeatedly tells me that we should start thinking beyond IIT Madras, and that is a very interesting thing. And thus came this Kotak Kism, right, the Kotak Center, where we now have 7 IITs, and we are trying to do something across IITs to solve a national problem. And many times, even with many centers, he says we need to expand. And I think that's a great thought process. Being NIR of one, I think we need to now start thinking about other IITs rather than just our IITs, and that will bring up our brand value to greater heights. So thank you, Mahesh, for all that you have done. And I'm sure, Ashwin, you have handed over, like how Bhaskar handed over IIT Madras directorship in a golden plate to me. I'm sure you are handing in a diamond plate, probably, a little more than that. And I wish Ashwin all success and all our support. And I'm sure Mahesh will be guiding. But one immediate assignment for Mahesh, he's going to take care of all our sports quota students. And he's been a mentor there. And so we set a foundation for one Olympic gold medal in the next 10 years. And you start working on it today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Now comes a special moment. We will now felicitate Professor Mahesh Panchagnola in appreciation of his contributions. I request Dr. Pavan Goenka, Professor Kamakoti, and Professor Ashwin to felicitate Professor Mahesh with an Angavastram, a memento, and a booklet which has been prepared lovingly by the ACR office with a collection of our memories with Professor Mahesh. I also request Mrs. Tripura Panchagnola, wife of Professor Mahesh Panchagnola, to join us on the stage for the felicitation. I request Ms. Jane Prasad, Registrar, IIT Madras, to felicitate Mrs. Tripura Panchagnola with the IITM Sari.
I'll come back and do a longer version later, but when Dr. Goenka and Professor Kamakoti and Dr. Jane Prasad are here, I want to acknowledge the role that the board and the directors play in the success of this office. Our administration is structured with the board of governors at the top, with the chairman, which is now Dr. Goenka, the longest serving chairman ever of IIT Madras. And a history of any IIT. So thank you very much. And this is not an easy job. I'm sure you get these approved mails, and there's a lot of work in this sort of a chairmanship compared to being the chair of a board of a corporate entity. I think the emphasis that the board has placed on this function for at least a decade plus now. I know Dr. Goenka took over in 2012, 14. Okay, since then, I remember the very first time I was sort of fortuitously invited by Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy to sit in on a meeting with Dr. Goenka, where he was meeting a cross-section of faculty. And the only question that stuck in my mind from that meeting was, what can we tell the world outside that IIT Madras is good for? What is it that you really will stand for, that others will recognize you for? Those are the, like Raghu said, the stories that I think we need to craft for ourselves from our research. I think my thinking was shaped from back in those days, and when I had the opportunity to take over as the dean, the board and Dr. Goenka personally have played a very, very important role in that he would make sure he would give a disproportionate share of his time during his visits here to make sure that the function is well served. As far as directors are concerned, nothing happens in this institute without the director's blessing. Nothing happens here without the directors being inclined to show their interest. And I've been extremely fortunate in that both Professor Bhaskaramurthy and Professor Kamakoti have given a disproportionate share, unbelievably disproportionate share of their time. And the only explanation I have is they must see something good in this, and that's the only reason they're doing it, because they're there to lead the whole institution to a greater height. I think I want to, in particular, thank Dr. Goenka, Professor Bhaskaramurthy, Professor Kamakoti. The execution of this whole office completely rests on the registrar's office and the deputy registrar, the registrar herself. I've only had the good fortune of working with Dr. Jain Prasad here. I've not seen another registrar to compare and contrast at all. And I can say that I have never felt the need to compare or contrast. She has been absolutely fantastic. She asks every so often, is the office okay? Are there things we can do from the institution side? As a rule enforcer, that should be the last question that a rule enforcer should be asking. But she's been extremely kind. She's actually not your typical run-of-the-mill UPSC cracking government bureaucrat, for sure. She's, by the way, a PhD in biotechnology, if any of you didn't know that. And so in her own right, she has led the execution of this office, making sure that the monies that we bring in are handled well, no questions asked, and everything is moving as per a plan. So I want to thank everybody for being extremely supportive, and look forward to being part of this institute for a little more time, for a few more years. Thank you.
I thank Dr. Goenka, Professor Kamakoti, and the Registrar for briefly joining us and making this event memorable. I now request the trustees of the IITM Alumni Charitable Trust to please present a token of memento to Professor Mahesh. I request the team of IITM Alumni Association to please present a gift to Professor Mahesh.
I'll also tell a few words. I'm Sridhar Bhuvaraghavan, the Secretary of the Alumni Association. And it's been about a year that I've been in this position, and Mahesh has been the only Dean of Alumni Relations that I have known. And what I can say is that a lot of others have talked before, is that there is, when you go and talk to him, there is always a vision behind what he is thinking of. And when he talks about the Alumni Association and where he would like to see it going, I can see that it is not just, okay, do 10% more or do 15% more next year. It is always, how can you double it or triple it or even go bigger than that? And that has been the ambitious goal that we have taken on board, and we've actually been able to do it because we have found him to be supportive. He has always given us the time whenever we asked for it, and he has supported us in our initiatives to bringing the alumni together. Now when you see, for example, when the Alumni Association last year had about 9 chapters, and now we have 24, right? This, we are talking about a 3x times goal, is something that is not just was there in his mind. It was also part of what we wanted to do. But this combined synergy of the Alumni Association working with the ACR office is what has made my job easier to make these kind of things possible. When we go to a new, let's say I go to Bhubaneswar and open a chapter there and I see people, IIT Madras alumni, so gladly fraternizing with each other, so gladly meeting with each other because they had not been a platform to do so before, right? And the support of the ACR office in enabling these kind of things is what helps me execute these tasks. And for that, I really want to thank Mahesh, and I look forward to continuing to work with Ashwin to do these kind of things in the future. We have great plans for the Alumni Association, and the ACR office is going to be an important component to support us in our vision going forward. Now, the other thing that I also found with Mahesh that has really struck me is that he has been very open about the culture that he brought to his role as well, and it is something that is, very upfront and unapologetic, and that I think is very, it's very respectful. It's admirable, and it's a compliment. It's a quality that I think we should all embrace, because we should not be afraid of who we are, right? We should not be afraid of what we believe in. We should not be afraid of our values and beliefs, as long as we have a strong foundation, and that is a personal characteristic that I found very admirable in him. The Alumni Association has had a very nice working relationship with the IACR office, and for that I would really like to thank Ashwin with a small token, Mahesh with a small token of gratitude. Ashwin, maybe next year, when I retire as secretary, we will do that. But Mahesh, please. With that, I conclude, and I wish Mahesh a great second innings as professor, and Ashwin, we look forward to working with you closely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we ask Professor Mahesh to speak to us, I'd like to invite a few of my colleagues who are very eager to speak about Professor Mahesh. I invite Pratibha to please come forward.
Hello, everyone. So I'm pretty new to this office. I just joined about a year and a half ago. I come from a primarily media background, and Professor Mahesh took me in for the Shastra magazine. So I just wanted to say a few words about Professor Mahesh and working with him so far as part of as part of Shastra magazine. So I find that he's very receptive to ideas, and he's always egged us on to perform better and kind of bring in new kind of thought process inside and everything. And apart from that, what I find interesting about him is that he never he never shoots down an idea saying that it's bad or anything like that. He always kind of accepts anything that comes to him, and he kind of gives us the direction to go forward. So I, being pretty new to the organization and everything, I'm in a way glad that you're off the deanship, because we have more time with you now, and we're looking forward to having your mentorship, and I hope to connect with a lot more departments and work together for Shastra magazine, and wishing you all the very best, and I'm sure we'll be all seeing a lot more of you anyways. Thank you very much.
I invite Mrs. Sujata Dubey to please say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sujata. I'm from the class of 1983 and one of the earliest employees of the development office. I remember when we started, it was in the multipurpose hall on the ground floor where the office started, and then we went upstairs, and I think the offices had at least three renovations since then. But now it's a much bigger and a very, very nice team. And it's very much a part to Dr. Mahesh's credit that the atmosphere in the office is so wonderful. So I want to thank him for that. So, and everyone's already said everything about him. What I would like to say is, what I really enjoy is the warmth when you go into his office. He's always really interested in what you have to say. And that's really wonderful. So thank you, sir, for that. Thank you.
I invite Mrs. Vasudha Narasimhan to please say a few words.
Hello, everybody. Everybody said a lot of things about Professor Mahesh. You know, what strikes wonderful about him is, he's an enthusiast. He's patriotic about IIT to the core. He's very vested as a mentor to, all of us in the office who've been beneficiaries. And above all, as Sujata said, he's always vested in us. And I think that many of us who came to the IIT fold from outside, he made it very easy for us to get absorbed into this culture, kind of understood the dilemmas we had when we were coming from outside into academia and handheld us through. So thank you for being a great mentor. And I think many of us will continue to draw on that support from you. And I think we will definitely miss you for all the enthusiasm and the passion that you put in. We will feel your absence. We'll, of course, continue to work with Professor Ashwin to keep up the good work that you set in. Thanks.
I invite Selvi Manoj to please say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a new entrant, 7 months, just a little over 7 months. But what I want to thank Professor Mahesh is for giving me an opportunity. He interviewed me, of course, K.K. Raman sir as well. But little thing that I want to talk about is when I came in very new, he made sure that he calendarized and he said, you'll meet me every week. At least that grounding that he set for me was a big morale booster. And I've worked with other academicians because my prior role, I was with Times of India. I was working with MIT, Deakin, INSEAD, and I've interacted with professors. But one marquee difference that I took away from for Professor Mahesh is he's just not an academician. The business acumen that I came across in every meeting, apart from strategizing, was immense. So we're going to miss that, but I have no doubt whatsoever that Prof. Ashwin will, handhold and give us that growth that you did. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I invite Mrs. Sunita Anupkumar to please say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. There are just 3 things I admire a lot about Professor Mahesh. Number 1, his role as an academician and a teacher. I sit right in front of his office, so I've never seen him make a student wait. I was in a meeting with him and there was a student waiting. He said students shouldn't wait, everybody else can wait. So he attended to the student. And so the passion he has for his teaching profession at the core, I really admire that about you, sir. There was a time when teaching was a dream job for me. I never got into it, but I'm always a little envious of anybody in that profession, and I admire that a lot about you, sir. Thank you very much for that. And number 2, his passion about alumni relations, not just alumni relations in IIT, his passion about alumni alma mater relationships. So many a times I've seen him, I've heard him talk about how every other university in this country should have an alumni relations office. I've heard it multiple times from him, and that is something I have learned a lot from him. So it's like the alumni relation with the institute, it grows, it brings a sort of camaraderie, it gives a sort of belonging to the institute, sir. So that's something I've learned from you, and I think every office, this office is an exemplar, like many others told, for an alumni office in the country, in the world, and we would like to grow that from your lessons. So thank you very much for that. And number 3, if I may say so, a little madness in the way that he brings into the processes. So just one example, we had the Friend Rising press conference. He wanted it to be a multilingual press conference. The team and I were like so scared about that. How is a presentation going to be multilingual in front of national media? There are so many people from big media houses there, and there are like 10,000 things that could have gone wrong on that day. But then Professor Mahesh told, just do it, Sunita, we'll take care of it. And we did that, and the press conference was a huge success. The PR team came to us and personally said that this is like one of the best press conferences we've had. All thanks to that little mad idea that Professor Mahesh gave us. And thank you very much, sir. So in short, what we have learned from you is to truly, madly, deeply believe in whatever you're doing, and success will just follow. Thanks very much, sir. And I know this is definitely not a goodbye or a farewell. There are so many other greater things coming from you, and this little group here will always be of cheerleaders. Thank you very much, sir.
I invite Mr. Vijay Kumar to please say a few words.
Good evening, all of you. This is actually my second innings as far as my career is concerned. After about 60 plus, I just took over this assignment about a year, 13, 14 months before. And I must really thank Professor Mahesh for the amount of critical assignments which he has given. And due to that, the amount of learning I have done in this thing, though I was in the financial services industry, and that helped me in learning new things into this thing. And the amount of confidence he reposed on me in giving me new assignments and critical assignments made me learn a lot of things. I thanks from my heart, sir, for this wonderful thing. Thank you very much.
I invite Mr. Rajesh to please say a few words.
Good evening all. கொஞ்சம் டென்ஷனாக இருக்குது இருந்தாலும் old dean and new dean. So it's been almost 6 years since Professor Mahesh has been there. And it was 15 days later like I joined this office, and I've seen a lot of things very closely from inside office and doing things. First to join பண்ணும்போது in IIT Trust, from the trust point of view, like DC was the secretary and then it slowly moved on. There are a lot of things like what people have said about Mahesh, like which one thing that are all missed. I'm not sure whether I can say that, but like since he's leaving or he's kind of left this office, I can say. Mahesh வந்து லிட்டரலாக பேர் எடுத்தோம்னா சிவனுக்கு வந்து கோபம் வந்ததுன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன். எவ்வளோ பேர் ஆஃபீஸில் வந்து அதை வந்து பார்த்துருக்கீங்கன்னு தெரியாது. ஸோ மகேஷ் இந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் 3 years ஜஸ்ட் கோவிட், ப்ரீ கோவிட், போஸ்ட் கோவிட்ன்ற போது 21, 22, 20 ஃபினான்ஷியல் இயர் லைக் 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021, 21, 22. COVID in the office முடிச்சிட்ட அப்புறம் what he is and what is like Shiva also like evolved, I would say. But what's more scary now is like Ashwin Mahalingam. அதனால ரொம்ப ஜாக்கிரதையாக பேசணும் இப்போ. So there were when Professor Mahesh joined or like took over, like I said, like 15 days and all those things, there were a lot of assignments or aspirations or targets or tasks like what he had because he had already done some lot of homework. ஹோம்ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டது வந்துட்டு தான் வந்துட்டு உங்ககிட்ட வந்து ஒரு டாஸ்கே கொடுப்பார். அண்ட் தெர் இஸ் நோ ஆப்ஷன் சேயிங் லைக் நோ ஐ வில் நாட் டூ இட். அந்த மைண்டில் போனீங்கன்னா அவ்வளோதான். இந்த சிவனை பார்க்கலாம், பார்த்துருக்கேன் ஒரு வாட்டி, நிறைய வாட்டி பார்க்கல. பிகாஸ் குவிக்லி அண்டர்ஸ்டுட் வாட் the institute wants or what he's doing for the institute. Everybody's talking about patriotic about institute and all those things. I think much more than that, like he always believes in building nation. IIT-ல வந்து எப்படி வந்து நேஷன் பில்ட் பண்ண முடியுன்றது தான் அதோட இது. ஸோ இன் தட் வே லைக் ஐ வுட் சே லைக் வாட் எவர் ஹீஸ் டூயிங் இன் டிஃப்ரெண்ட் ரோல் லைக் இட் வில் பி லைக் பில்டிங் த நேஷன் ஆர் ஃபார் த ஃபியூச்சர் ஆர் ஃபார் த யங் திஸ் திங். ஆனால் வீட்டில் வந்து எப்படி இவங்க மேமும் பசங்களையும் சமாளிக்கிறாங்க அப்படின்றது எனக்கு தெரியாது. நான் அப்புறமா வந்து கேட்குறேன். ஒரு காஃபிக்கு கூப்பிட்ருக்காரு. ஐ வில் கம் தேர் ஃபார் த காஃபி அண்ட் ஹேவ் இட். ஸோ தோ ஐ ஹேட் அ ப்ரிப்பேர்ட் ஸ்பீச், ஐ எம் நாட் கோயிங் டு டேக் தட் அண்ட் ரீட் இட். He's a person like who is of high discipline and deeply rooted value system. When value system is there, like it's the integrity of a person, like what he's doing is like much beyond like you can even talk about or tell about and all these things. So no kadasiya, the last thing like what I would say is like I don't know how many people have seen this fruit called jackfruit. Jackfruit எடுத்துட்டு நீங்கள் வந்துட்டு when you like keep it or like you want to slice it and do it, it's very difficult to do that fruit. ஏன்னா வெளியில் வந்து முள்ளாக இருக்கும், எப்படி வச்சும் பண்ண முடியாது. அண்ட் இட்ஸ் காட் அ ப்ராசஸ். அவரும் அப்படி தான். ஃபஸ்ட் டைம் வந்துட்டு நான் போய் அவர் பார்க்கும்போது ரொம்ப முள்ளாக இருந்தது, குத்துற மாதிரி இருந்தது. பட் when you start spending time with him or when you understand like what he's trying to tell you or what he wants to be done, you all know like he's a go-getter. அந்த go-gettingக்கு வந்துட்டு அவர் வந்து ஒரு இது பிடிச்சிட்டாருன்னா அவ்வளோதான். டைமில் சொல்ல மாட்டார். ஹீஸ் நாட் லைக் எஸ்டே டைப்ஸ் அண்ட் ஆல். இஃப் ஹி சேஸ் இட் ஹேஸ் டு ஹேப்பன், இட் ஹேஸ் டு ஹேப்பன் இமீடியட்லி. ஹவு? ஃபிகர் இட் அவுட். இல்லைன்னா ஒரு வார்த்தை சொல்லுவார், யுவர் ஜென்ரல் மேனேஜர் ஆப்ரேஷன்ஸ்னோ கண்டுபிடி, திரும்பி வரும்போது முடிச்சிடுவா அப்படிதான்ட்டு. ஸோ இந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் 3 years like whatever time we have spent, it has been like more of like task given like that needs to be delivered. Don't go back and say like இல்லை இது முடியல, இது முடியாது, இது இப்படி இதெல்லாம் மெயிலில் போட்டால் கூட அவர் ரெஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ண மாட்டார். But 3 years later, like after post-COVID, this office thing, like I'm seeing a different Mahesh. More evolved, more structured, more processed, like more accepting of ideas from different people or whatever you call it. So in that way, like he also has evolved, I also have evolved in this whole thing, and thanks for making it happen and giving the opportunity to work under you, Prof. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Satyam. I graduated 2 months back. I'm a 2024 graduate. So I joined office recently, and before that I was doing an intern here for 6 months. And while doing an intern, I was very confused. I asked Bala sir that whose idea is this to getting like young alum from IITM to ACR, and he said it's an idea of Mahesh sir to get young alum into our office. And I was very confused about that because people are doing, like my friends are doing some corporate job and learning management consulting everywhere. But then learning it here in IIT Madras, because it was very new for me. And at that time, I think when I got offered in PPO, I had a dinner with Professor Mahesh, and that dinner gave like a really great and new perspective about that. And that was his idea, which like now in impact, that I am here working with all of you guys and enjoying the process, getting my ideas into IIT Madras for the development. And there are so many things about Professor Mahesh to admire, but I would like to mention 2 which I always wanted to take away from him. They are like, first, he is such a great storyteller, I would say. And another one is to accept the new ideas and execute it like in 100%. I am very grateful for this opportunity, and would be forever grateful to Professor Mahesh to get me in this role. Thank you.
I think I will definitely contradict with what Rajesh told. This is purely based on some of our experiences with Professor Mahesh. There is this one line which I know about a leader in Tamil. It says, குரல்களை உயர்த்துவது தலைமைத்துவம் அல்ல, நாம் பேச தொடங்கும் பொழுது குரல்கள் அடங்குவதே தலைமைத்துவம். I think this suits Professor Mahesh very well. We are always happy to listen whenever Professor Mahesh talks. And I'm very fortunate to have worked under Professor Mahesh. Thank you, Professor, and for all the insights which you have shared. And a leader who is always ready to listen. And I've been very fortunate to work under him. Thank you, Professor.
எனக்கு ரொம்ப எமோஷ்னலாக இருக்குது ஆக்சுவலி. அதனால தான் பேச வரலாமா வேண்டாமா அப்படின்னு யோசிச்சுட்டே இருந்தேன். ப்ரொஃபஸர் எப்போவுமே ரொம்ப நல்ல மென்டராக இருந்திருக்காரு. அண்ட் இங்கே எல்லாருக்கும் வந்து அவர் நிறைய அவர்கிட்ட லேர்ன் பண்ணது இல்லாமல் அவரோட கேர் எங்கள் மேலே இருக்கிறது பர்சனலாகவும். நீங்கள் வந்துட்டு ரொம்ப ஒரு பேசுகிறது மீட்டிங்லலாம் வந்து நீங்கள் வந்து வாக்கிங் போங்க. அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து எனக்கு நிறைய கற்றுக்கிட்டேன் சார்கிட்ட இருந்து. எண்டோமெண்ட் இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் கால்குலேஷன் ஃபஸ்ட்டு நீங்கள் வந்து எனக்கு எக்ஸலில் எப்படி கால்குலேட் பண்ணணும், எப்படி ஃபார்முலா போடணும், என்னோடய பிளேஸ்லேயே வந்து உட்காந்து சொல்லி கொடுத்தாரு ப்ரொஃபஸர். ஸோ அதுக்கப்புறமா அந்த ஷீட் நான் யார்கிட்ட காமிச்சாலும், இந்த ஃபார்முலாஸ்லாம் எப்படி போட்டிங்க, உங்களுக்கு எக்ஸல் அவ்வளோ நல்லா தெரியுமா? எனக்கு இல்லை, ப்ரொஃபஸர் தான் இது சொல்லி கொடுத்தாரு அப்படின்னு சொன்னேன் நான் எல்லாருக்கிட்டேயும். ஸோ எனக்கு ப்ரொஃபஸரை பற்றி நான் எங்கள் வீட்டில் பேசி பேசி எல்லோரும் வந்து லாஸ்ட் 1 மந்த்தாக கேட்டுட்ருக்காங்க, போகிறாரா, எப்போ போகிறாரு, என்னைக்கு லாஸ்ட் டேட்டு, என்னைக்கு லாஸ்ட் டேட். நிறைய ஃப்ரீடம் கொடுப்பாரு. ஒரு ஒர்க் இருந்தால் அதை நம்ம முடிக்கணும், இப்படி தான் முடிக்கணும், இப்படி தான் பண்ணணும், நீங்களே அதை பண்ணி அதுக்கு சொல்யூஷன் எடுத்துகிட்டு வாங்க. அவ்வளோ ஒரு ஃப்ரீடம் எனக்கு தெரிஞ்ச இந்த ஆஃபீஸில் தான் அவ்வளோ ஒரு ஃப்ரீடம் இருக்கும்னு நினைக்கிறேன் நம்மளுக்கு ஒர்க் பண்ணுறதுக்கு. அண்ட் ஃப்ளெக்சிபிலிட்டி, டைமிங்காக இருக்கட்டும், எல்லாமே வந்துட்டு ரொம்ப யோசிச்சு பண்ணுவார். எதாவது கேட்கும்போது கூட ஒரு சில சமயம் சொல்லுவார், உங்களுக்கு அவ்வளோ டைம் இருக்குமா, வீட்டில் குழந்த இருக்குது, ஸோ 6க்கு அப்புறம் ஏதாவது என்னைக்காவது ஒரு நாள் இருக்கணும்னா கூட கேட்பார். 6 o'clock அப்புறம் தான் நான் திரும்ப வருவேன், நீங்கள் இருப்பீங்களா அப்படின்னு கேட்பார். ஸோ அந்த விஷயம்லாம் எங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப மிஸ் பண்ணுறோம். பட் தேங்க்யூ ப்ரொஃபஸர்.
ப்ரொஃபஸர், உங்களை ரொம்ப நாங்கள் மிஸ் பண்ணுவோம். ஸோ உங்ககிட்ட இருந்து நாங்கள் நிறையா விஷயம் லேர்ன் பண்ணிக்கிட்டோம் ப்ரொஃபஸர். ஸோ டிஎஸ்டி டீம்ன்றதே வந்துட்டு உங்களால் தான் வந்துட்டு ஸ்டார்ட் ஆச்சு. ஸோ நாங்களாம் இவ்வளோ பண்ணுவோன்னு சொல்லிட்டு எங்கள் மேலே ட்ரஸ்ட் வச்சு நீங்கள் ஜாப் எல்லாம் கொடுத்துருக்கீங்க சார். ஸோ இப்படி தான் ஒர்க் பண்ணணும்னு கல்பனா சொன்ன மாதிரி நீங்கள் எப்பயும் இன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ட் பண்ணதில்லை. ஸோ நீங்கள் எங்களுக்கு ஃப்ரீடம் கொடுத்ததால நாங்கள் இன்னும் மோர் கேர் எடுத்து அந்த ஒர்க்கை கம்ப்ளீட் பண்ணணும்னு எப்பயும் நினைப்போம் ப்ரொஃபஸர். இட்ஸ் அ கிரேட் பிளெஸ்ஸிங் டு ஒர்க் வித் யூ சார். தேங்க்ஸ். Thank you so much.
A very good evening to all of you. I'm Praveena, part of the CSR DST team. I joined the Alumni office, Alumni and Corporate Relations office, a year after Professor Mahesh became the dean. So when we initially joined, I think we did not have designated teams like how we have grown today, like a scholarship team or a prizes, awards, endowment, deployment team, and so on. So on the time la pathina yaar eppadi ponangno, come here, this is your task today. You'll have to complete. So our brainchild, many projects have been there, not only Shastra magazine. Before Shastra magazine, Tech Talk is something is his brainchild, and I'm very proud I have been part of it along with Akshay. So something where it's to showcase and feature the research of IIT professors into layman's terms or common man's terms where everybody find it interesting to read. Again, like Kalpana and Ilavarasi and everybody else said, Professor has always given us the freedom. Problem statement oda pokudadu Professor Mahesh kitta. Always get a solution to the problem. Learn to work around the problem, and it's been a privilege to work under his leadership. Thank you, Professor. We'll truly miss you. Thank you so much. One more point. I never knew Rajesh can speak so much public speaking. I think he's been such an inspirational leader. I'm amazed to hear Rajesh speak today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shweta Venkat. I'm part of the DST team. So I think I would like to begin with thank you, sir, for the DST team. I don't think I would be here without it. I have heard so many people speak today, so many of the alumni, people who've worked with him for so many years, kind of made me jealous that I probably didn't join earlier. I only complete 1 year in November. Yes, maybe if I joined earlier, would have had more time to work with you, sir. My first interaction with Mahesh, sir, was, of course, my interview. And I was very prepared that he'll ask me where I went to college, what I did, what my previous job was. He didn't ask me anything. He just put straight one situation in front of me and he said, what would you do? And I gave the best answers. I'm here today. I think my answer worked for sir. Thank you, sir. I have actually grown up listening to most of the work that you've done, though I have not been physically present in office to visualize it. I have heard of your inspiring stories. I think the 6 years tenure that you have had, every meeting with you, I have had, backlog at home saying, you know what sir said at home today. So thank you so much. Though I haven't worked for very long, I think it would have been silly of me to not take this stage and this opportunity to say that it has really been a pleasure for the little time that I've had been a part of this office along with you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. The reason why I'm here is like because of sir only I'm here now. And he has given the freedom of taking the decision. Like if we ask him any question or we ask him any suggestion, you tell me what you will do in this situation. That's how he puts the question across to us. So he make us to take the decision. So even on a Saturday or a Sunday, if he calls, he first asks, are you free? That will be the first question. Then only he will tell us what he want. So I have never seen such a leader. Like I've worked in many organizations and this is the best. And you are the best, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, all. Even I'm not a good speaker on the mic and all. Just wanted to thank you, Professor Mahesh, for this opportunity. Professor Ashwin recommended me to this office and said that, no, it is very important that Mahesh needs a secretary. So you please join that office is what Professor Ashwin told. And again, I'm happy that he is going to be my next boss. One thing I would love Professor Mahesh is that if I go with any question, he says, why it is, and he says yes. He has never said no for that. And the kind of energy that Professor Mahesh has at this age, even I don't have. I never seen him using the elevator in the office. And such a nice person, and I'm very fortunate for having such a nice boss. Thank you.
I now invite Tejashwi to please say a few words.
Good evening, everybody. Probably like some of the other alumni I mentioned, I am probably the youngest person in the audience today. Unlike others who have said I've known Mahesh for 10 years, 12 years, I have probably known him for my entire lifetime, 21 years, so most experience also with him. So, yeah, probably not. There are some others who have known him for longer, but and one more anecdote is that maybe I can. And one more thing is that some of you people might not, you might have some hesitation in disagreeing with him and saying, no, this is not how you should do this. But me, for one, I can say I will openly say, no, this is just some crazy idea that you have, or this is not going to work, or you should probably do it this way. And to all of you who say that, he's very passionate at work, and he puts it at a high priority and is committed, I can surely, be a testament to that because, for example, if he has to drop me to my college, he will put that on his calendar saying drop Tej at college. Or even for my convocation, he had to put 8 hours of the day saying go to convocation. So if this has to go on the calendar, that means, there are so many other things which are lined up for him throughout the day. And and I've, over the term of his deanship, I've seen, many of his ideas which were just, ideas which he used to talk at home have actually gone on to be implemented. So, to see that someone has the patience to, put it up in a meeting, get it minuted, blah, 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 all the way until it's actually done is, it's a big achievement. And also the various kind of intimidation tactics being used on Professor Ashwin saying big shoes, blah. And also one more thing, if you see my father's hair right now, it's very gray, and Professor Ashwin's is still much darker. So that will also change in the next terms coming ahead. So yeah, and one more thing which me and my mother and my sister have noticed is that if once he's done with this, he will actually get bored at home because he has had so much to think about throughout the day. And even at night, he would take, video calls with people in the US or wherever, right? So now now that he has given all that task to the next person, he'll have a lot of free time, and God knows what he's going to do with that. So yeah, thank you everyone. And it's actually nice to see that he used to keep saying, I have a meeting with this person, I have a meeting with that person. To see most of you people in one room, it actually kind of makes the setting very nice to see that he knows so many people, and so many people actually want to show up to this event on a random Thursday afternoon. So yeah, thank you all. Thank you very much for being here.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say this point. I go with some question to him, and he used to say, whatever you think is right, please do. That was the answer that anybody can say here. So he always says that, and that worked many times, and that I think no leader says that. They will analyze what to do, but he right away says, whatever you think is right, please do. That's a great thing I want to add.
I think last but not the least, I would like to say something which nobody has covered today, and that is Professor's cooking skills. I love the avial that he made last year for the potluck, and this year also. I totally enjoyed. I think his family is blessed to have him in that way also. Thank you, Professor. It was very nice. We enjoyed it thoroughly. He told us he cooked it. No. So as we approach the culmination of this event, it is time to hear from the man of the moment himself. Professor Mahesh has been a guiding force for many of us, and we are eager to listen to his reflections and parting words. Please join me in welcoming Professor Mahesh Manchagnolat to speak.
Good evening, friends. It's been extremely heartening to see this big a gathering, in this sort of a setting. This is where we signed a 50 crore deal with Walmart, and things like that. This stage and this occasion, this backdrop is reserved for those sorts of occasions. I didn't expect this. I didn't want this. I don't know who planned it, but I'll find out and I'll make sure we'll remedy it. But thank you all for your outpouring of gratitude. This is certainly well above and beyond all calls of duty. Thank you so much. I'm extremely heartened to see this camaraderie being expressed in words. I want to walk all of you through my journey of being a faculty member. I grew up in Hyderabad, went to school at a place called St. Anthony's High School in Himayat Nagar. This is the primary school time, so you're going to be here for a while. You're okay, right? Okay. I'm 54 years old. We're talking when I was 7 years old. So from there, we went to this one famous college called Little Flower Junior College, which was where all the students wanted to go. I was fortunate to go there. And then there was this one man named Ramaya, who had just started an IIT coaching center in Hyderabad. And a small group of us were the second ever batch to go work with him. Absolute brilliant teacher. So if anybody wants to know what a teacher should be like, I have learned that from him. I was to write my JEE in April 1988. And in January 1988, after we had done with his class from 5 till 6:30 in the morning, we were all kids playing cricket on a street parallel to where his house was. And that day, our misfortune, took a walk into that street, saw us playing cricket 4 months away from JEE. The man shed tears. He just cried, saying, "Is this how you guys prepare for JEE?" So, I was fortunate to have such passionate people around me. I think some of that has rubbed off in me, and what you hear of me is due to people like that. And then 4 years at IIT, some of the most pleasant times I've ever had in my life were here. Then go to Purdue, did my graduate school completely free of cost. And then I worked in the industry for about 5 years, where I got to travel the world. I went to 15 countries of the world, on business and just to meet clients. And I was the lone PhD in that company within 200-300 miles. And so I was like the star that the company wanted to project, saying, "Look, we also have a PhD." So I was this little showpiece every time we went to see a customer. And I was quite happy being that young bachelor, got to travel all these places, got to meet a lot of people. For example, I went to meet one of the bosses at Ferrari in Italy, who served me Italian food. And that's when I found out American Italian food is nothing like the Italian food. So there were instances like that really made an impact on me. And then fast forward a few years, I'm sure you love the word fast forward. In 2010 is when I started at IIT Madras. Professor Anant was quite persuasive. That was a time when IIT had gone through a dip in the total faculty count. That just started an uptick. And I was one of the people that were recruited in that uptick. And so I was the 17th faculty member in my department. Today we are 36. So and this is the story with everybody that came on board around that time, I'm sure, civil as well. So I think I'm grateful to Professor Anand for being very patient with many issues around that time. There were a couple of lawsuits on him personally, on IIT. Then he was trying to do the best for IIT at that time. He's a real visionary. If any of you ever want to go understand what a visionary thinks like, he still lives here in Besant Nagar. You should just go say hello to him. I'm sure you know him. You should go say hello to him. He would love to hear from you, each of you as well. And then I became involved with CFI, which was the training ground for me in university administration. I had not taken on administration roles till then. But my philosophy always has been that one does not need a role to do good. You do good, and therefore roles happen. If they happen, if they don't happen, that's also fine. So I was involved in my department faculty recruitment, for example, quite closely with my head. So I was one of the few people who would show up whenever he wanted some help of me. And so this is just primarily to make sure we get good people into the faculty. And as long as you have a head who also has the same inclination, that person is quite happy to have you around, dot the I's, cross the T's, and make sure everything is fine. And you also have a say. When you get that close, you actually have a say in who should be recruited into the department. So you always can do good just by raising your hand and saying, "Can I do ABC?" That's something that I learned very early on. It may just be part of me, but I will strongly recommend that to be your own work ethic, your own work culture all the time. Don't wait for somebody to come and tell you, "This is your role, thou shalt do that." That's the less desirable way of taking on responsibilities. The more desirable way is you find something good around you that you think should be done, raise your hand and say, "I will spend my extra time to do that little extra bit, because I really think it's an important role to play. And I think over time you will see your own personality grow. You will also grow in stature from taking on these additional self-inflicted responsibilities. This is very important. This is an important message that I learned for myself. There was a little bit of a positive reinforcement. So when I take on responsibility for myself, I see some good happening around me. Now you want to take on more positive responsibility for yourself. So think of this as the best sort of remuneration. I always tell myself, I get paid in rupees at the end of the month, but I get paid in these other rewards every day of the week, every day of the month. Right? That doesn't wait for the 31st of the month to roll around. So the paycheck is divided into two separate currencies. One currency pays you at the end of the month, the other currency should pay you every day. If you're not getting paid in the other currency every day, something is wrong with your role, because it is not a self-inflicted responsibility. So take on more self-inflicted responsibilities that will really make sure that you grow in a direction that you want to grow. And then, as we go along, in 2018, I was asked by Nag and Professor Bhaskar to take on this role as the dean. But even before that, I was sort of involved in the Wednesday meetings since almost 2016, 17. I still remember that chair I used to sit when Nag and DC were the secretary and the dean. And, we would have these conversations around fundraising, check, the lead to check conversion, that process. And we would have all these nice conversations, beautiful snacks every day at 4 o'clock, nice hot samosas, sometimes dosas on the platter. And then along came the idea that since I had already been introduced to a lot of alumni, it was right for me to take on that role after Nag. Now, like I've always believed that I still, in fact, let me go back and say one thing very categorically. In September 2018, there was a big, again, a farewell or a celebration event for Professor Nag. It was nothing short of this. It was held in one of the hotels. Do you remember where, Sujata? Chris came, Crown Plaza. Crown Plaza. It was held in Crown Plaza. Chris flew down all the way from Bangalore. Shankar was here, DC, all of this thing. And you should understand, 78 crores in the financial year 2017-18 was a national record by far. And having a database of 35,000 emails in 2018 was already one of the best databases that anybody in the country ever had. So these sorts of foundational elements, are extremely important to build the office to the next level. I think Nag certainly had the vision to put these foundational elements in place while also doing national record-breaking fundraising. I think along the way we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and that's why we see farther and farther away. This is quote Newton. I think we all owe our growth to every step of the faculty, hundreds and thousands of faculty who came before us, who did their little bit. Satya, who is now the director at IIT Tirupati, told me that there was a day when IIT would be hesitant about taking alumni money. DC talked of that. But after they took alumni money, they were hesitant to put the alumni's name on a building. This is after. So Satya would fight the battle with the then director, saying, look boss, you've taken the person's money. The least you should do is express the gratitude after you've taken. You are worse than the person before you who said, I won't take the money. So this was actually a more difficult battle to fight, if you'll imagine, that if you ever drive by the sports field avenue, if you see PG Senapati Computing Center, Satya fought literally with the director to put the name PG Senapati. And you know who is PG Senapati? Chris's father. So the money came from Chris, and the best way to go into a person's heart is through their parents. So Satya fought the battle, Deshpande Center for Network Technologies. Again, Desh didn't want the name on there. Satya fought the battle internally here to make sure Desh's name is on there. So Desh will remain connected to IIT Madras. That's the whole purpose. Right? So you should understand locally at that time, that was a huge battle to fight. It was no smaller battle compared to any other battle we are fighting today here. So every one of them has done some good for us. As Kama said a little while ago, we've been fortunate that every dean who has come along here, Shankar, that every dean who has come along here has have brought something to the table that was relevant to this position. A passion. Satya was an alumnus and he knew how to project IIT. He's now the director at IIT Tirupati, obviously. So the whole idea of an office like this growing from strength to strength. One room, as Ashwin said, one room, one advisor, one employee, to today where we have a reasonably big space with about 65 employees and a payroll that rivals some of the best in the institute today. Right? The idea of really growing this office from strength to strength is what I really want to project. In the last 6 years, we've done some remarkable things together, absolutely wonderful things. The kinds of numbers that our report card, the office's report card can project, boggles many people. I met this man named Ashish Dhawan. He has been a private equity investor for many years. This guy is one of the 3 brain fathers of Ashoka University. As you all know, Ashoka is set up completely on philanthropy. He had done his homework on IIT Madras and said, you guys are on to amazing things. And that's because of the complete team firing on every part of the engine, firing on every cylinder. I think that's something I'm extremely proud of. The fact that each part of this office is firing on its own with very little intervention from any other part required to really keep the engine going is part of the reason we are able to free up our neuron time to think of something new, to free up our neuron time to say what next. No use of that information. That's done and dusted. Tell me how many do you want 10 years from now, 5 years from now. So that aspect has really made a big difference to our office here. Along the way, personally, there have been at least a dozen people that have shaped my thinking. I talked of Professor Anant. I briefly mentioned Professor Bhaskar, who has been absolutely wonderful as a backstop of ideas. You can bounce ideas and a knowledgeable repartee would come back from him. Something knowledgeable would come back from that person. It's a privilege to really even know these kinds of people in this world, in this day and age today. Professor Kamakoti, a man of immense passion and energy. He works like a dog. I don't know how many of you know, but he's on WhatsApp 18, 19 hours a day for good reasons, not just reading some random feed from high school WhatsApp group, good mornings. But there is just so much energy in the institute at every level today. And this office, I think, embodies that energy of this institute. Apart from the official administrators, I've had the good fortune of bouncing ideas of, someone like DC who really played a crucial role in bringing the trust closer to IIT. I've seen other institutions, from my vantage point, I get to talk to other deans of other institutions. Everyone now has a trust or a foundation like we do. But those other entities are trying to, like a dog, do what a dog does and demarcate their boundaries. That's completely contrary to the way our trust here functions. And when I describe how our trust is structured vis-a-vis IIT Madras, the other IITs, including some of the larger ones, are baffled. How did you do this? I said, well, alumni here are of that feather. They chose to keep their trust closer to IIT than you or people are choosing to keep their entities in relation to the institute. So we are ever grateful to this small group of alumni who said, this is the best way to structure a trust, rather than to keep it at an arm's length. I think people like DC, Chris, I want to talk a little bit about what Chris has done. I'm sure many people here know the amount of money to the last paise that he has given. But that's really the smallest part of what Chris has done. For at least a decade and a half, he has lent his name to our fundraising process. He has actually flown with directors to meet alumni when he was still the vice chairman at Infosys. He has actually stuck his neck out and said, you guys should be giving money to IIT, like I have done. And wherever I have gone and talked about IIT, when I say people like Chris are involved, it has meant the world to the other person hearing us out. So we should be grateful to these people who have done much more than just given us a little bit of money and wrote a check when we needed it. People like Chris have been absolutely the bedrock on which we have built our reputation. The first 10 crore plus check came from Chris, and that made a difference at that time. Now we are at the first 100 crore plus check, which came from Krishna Chukla, or commitment came from Sunil Wadhwani. These are the people whose reputation we will now have to leverage going forward and build the next generation of alumni relations. And along with DC, Shankar has been an absolutely amazing sounding board for me, not just related to the Dean's office, but broadly about life in general. His outlook is very unique. He's a man in a hurry. I don't know how he built camps as being a man in a hurry, because that is not a field where one needs to be in a hurry. I've asked him this question as well. But really speaking, he's been an absolutely wonderful, I'll say, mentor to me, because there were many a times when you are at a crossroads and you need to sort of understand the repercussions of a decision, and he was one of the few people that I had an opportunity to sound off and gain some inputs, gain some insights. Kamal on the other side of the pond in the US, Kamal Dugirala, I want to place on record my appreciation for the way he has led the US organization. There have been extreme difficulties in terms of structuring the foundation vis-a-vis their relationship to IIT Madras. Kamal was the steady hand that everybody respected. And so you always need this one steady hand, like India is now trying to be the steady hand between Ukraine and Russia. You need this one steady hand that everybody will rally around and work towards a common cause, which is a better IIT Madras, a better alma mater for all of us. And I'm sure if I go on to list, I'll miss a few people, so I'll stop listing names here. But I want to say a couple of things about the office itself. I'm already 15 minutes in, so I'll take maybe 5 more minutes and stop. The culture in this office is something, which is it is a culture where I believe we take care of each other. We take care of our employees. Okay? That is a non-negotiable. Our employees' well-being comes first. That's one. Number 2, we all want to go the extra mile and grow the extra smile. So when required, we all go out of the way, do whatever is required to make sure we do well. But I want to come back and read these out one more time to each of you. If you ask which one of these two comes first and which one follows, I want to re-emphasize a healthy culture in the office where we first take care of each other's well-being comes first. From that flows the idea of going that extra mile and therefore growing the extra smile. I want to make sure, as my little suggestion to all of you, please keep this in your as your sort of working philosophy. Make sure you first and foremost take care of the people around you. Make sure they're happy. Make sure they're doing their job well. There are enough checks and balances in the system that if somebody is slacking off, they will be let gone. You don't have to sacrifice the well-being of the office to let go of somebody if required. There hardly anybody has left this office. The people that have left for some extreme reasons, personal reasons usually. So the aspect of us taking care of our colleagues and therefore automatically the office going beyond and above the call of duty is the way I have imagined a good office to be set up. And I'll urge each and every one of you to think about it as being a good way to do your own work. That efficiency flows from having a good office. It's not the other way around. And the last point I want to make before I close is that many of the things that have been said are absolutely flattering, and I don't know how much of that I truly deserve, but I must say one thing, that you have been an immense source of strength. When I go talk to a Kamakoti or when I go talk to a registrar, I know I can make a commitment sitting somewhere else and know that the execution will happen. And that strength is something that one cannot buy with money. That strength is something I cannot gain or sort of prepare overnight. So thank you all for being an amazing set of colleagues to work with. Like everyone has said, I'm going to be around for at least another decade plus. So I'll probably bump into you on, going up and back and forth. You all know my phone numbers, my email addresses, those don't change. So you're welcome to drop in if there is a need. But I think, we're all here for a common cause. I want to say one thing about big shoes. September 2018, there was this lot of big shoes ideas that were set aside. And in my mind, I was very clear. And I want to ask each and every one of you before I say what was on my mind. How many of you have ever put on shoes that someone else left behind? Has anybody ever done that? However big or small they were, however comfortable, beautiful they were. Each of us walks into the room with our own pair of shoes. And as we grow, our shoes grow with it. We go to Bata one more time, buy the next size, right? So I think that is the philosophy that we should all approach. I think each one of us comes to this job with our own pair of shoes, and each pair is required for that day's work. And the person's shoes that are left behind, I'm not hoping to leave behind any shoes, by the way. I don't have spare shoes. I'm going to take my shoes on my way out. So Ashwin has to bring his own shoes and do his own thing. There are no shoes left behind. So I'm very clear about that. And I will say one last thing that I've said to Ashwin many times. September 2018, Mahesh, and September 2024, Ashwin. Mahesh would vote for September 2024, Ashwin, as being more prepared to be the dean. Okay, so hold on to your horses, be ready for a wilder ride. I'm sure there's going to be many, many more interesting ideas that you will hear. You will hear interesting, see, when there is money in the bank, we can sit back and think of new ideas, right? So be ready for some extremely radically new ideas. Be ready to execute them with our fearless new leader, Ashwin. I'm sure. Yeah. So there are no shoes left behind. Let me assure you, I'm going back with my own pair of shoes. I think the office is going to be better off with Ashwin at the helm now. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing all of you somewhere sometime. There's a radio program in the US called Prairie Home Companion. There was a man named Garrison Keeler who would anchor that program, and his tagline at the end would always say, "Be well, do good, keep in touch." Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mahesh, for your inspiring words. Your legacy and impact will continue to inspire us long after this day. On behalf of everyone here, I want to extend our deepest gratitude to Professor Mahesh for his dedicated service and leadership. We wish him nothing but success in his future endeavors. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this special occasion. Let's close this event with a round of applause for Professor Mahesh Panchagranav.
I want the office people to stay back. I have a small token of a small gift for all of our office employees, IACR employees. பிரியா இந்த ஒரு டப்பா எடுத்துன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க